Pat Walsh, who's in Belfast, a historian and political analyst. Pat, welcome to the programme. Just give us an overall assessment of the power play that's taking place.
Well, I think, that Armenia has been in crisis since the end of the war, that it lost thoroughly in early November. Really, leaders who are defeated in war rarely stay in power. Pashinyan has managed to cling to power for 4 months, which actually shows he probably has still quite a lot of substantial support in the society. And that's mainly based on the fact that a large number of Armenians want democratic reform and don't want to return to the previous administration before Pashinyan. But he's faced with people who are really using the defeat in the war and his role in actually agitating for the war and losing it to undermine his position now. So that's really the background to the actual what's happening in Yerevan at the present minute. It is extraordinary. Yeah.
No, sorry, Pat. I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Do you expect there to be some serious developments over the next few days? I mean, sacking the chief of the armed forces after the army calls for an elected leader to step down, and at the moment there's a little bit of a lull. But do you think something serious is about to happen?
Well, anything is really possible in this situation. I mean, it is an extraordinary series of events. I mean, it isn't really a coup at the present time. What's probably happened is Pashinyan has sensed the coup is coming and he's headed it off. I mean, it's not usual in a democracy for the head of the armed forces to criticize the political leadership of a state. And Pashinyan is probably within his rights to act at this particular time. It's very difficult to predict what will happen. I think, at the end of the day, both sides will face a similar reality no matter what happens.
Now, what about Pashinyan's popularity? He says it's going to be up to citizens to decide. I suppose he's saying wait for the next elections. If there were to be an election today, would he win that?
Oh, I'd find that very difficult to prophesy that. Armenia seems fairly evenly balanced. There are obviously people, as I said before, there are people who want his reforms to succeed. But the problem is he's a leader who's lost a war, and usually leaders who lose war lose power. And this is the dilemma that Armenia faces at the present minute. There is substantial support for Pashinyan and for the reform of Armenia and for a different future for Armenia. But at the same time, it's had a thoroughly depressing experience in this defeat. It's been a really big psychological blow to the society.
Yeah, and also to the army, of course, Pat, because they were very well beaten in that 44-day conflict against Azerbaijan. But after that defeat, there were so many people in Armenia calling Pashinyan a traitor, a man who just didn't know what he was doing, a man who capitulated to the peace deal. What would the possible popular reaction be to a man who is assessed to have let his own country down in terms of what the people might want in the future to regain that confidence from that huge defeat?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem Pashinyan faces, that although people want his movement to succeed, they will undoubtedly blame him for the war, and particularly for the secrecy that was, that was spread right across the, essentially there was disinformation about the success of the Armenian forces, and the final defeat was sprung on the people. And this is probably a very, very telling negative against Pashinyan. And that's why I think, it's very firmly in the balance, this. It's very difficult. I can't see an opposition essentially having any other alternative to what Pashinyan is doing. And I think this is why there is still support for Pashinyan. There's a sense of reality in Armenia. They lost the war. Russia is basically forcing them into a settlement. And they know that this is a difficult situation to get out of for any leader. So I think this is why the thing is finely balanced, and it's hard to predict how it's going to go.
Pat, really appreciate it. Thank you so much indeed for wrapping that up for us. Pat Walsh in Belfast.